And by the way,
Senator Sinema is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. You know, today's hearing is about trust. Whose trust has been broken, who broke that trust, and how all of us work together to reaffirm and rebuild that trust. Trust is a key principle that the modern banking system is built on. Families trust that their hard-earned savings are safe in the U.S. banking system. Congress entrusts our federal banking regulators with the power to supervise, regulate, and examine banks. We trust you to be the cops on the beat and have given you the tools to do that job. The failure of Silicon Valley Bank on the Federal Reserve's watch very clearly calls into question whether or not some of that trust was misplaced. Make no mistake, the lion's share of the blame is on incompetent bank executives. And it's outrageous that these people took bonuses and sold stock in the days leading up to the bank's failure. We should hold these executives accountable for the fullest extent of the law and claw back those bonuses and stock sales. I'm co-sponsoring a bill to do just that. But as I laid out in a letter to you, Vice Chair Barr, that, by the way, was signed by 11 other senators spanning the ideological spectrum, it's gravely concerning that retail participants, literally just regular everyday people, were able to figure out that something was wrong with Silicon Valley Bank before your regulators took appropriate action. Now, these folks don't have access to non-public information like the bank examiners do, but when people on Reddit and Twitter can spot bank mismanagement before the regulators, something is terribly wrong. So my questions today are for you, Vice Chair Barr. I have lots of questions, so I'd like concise answers, and we'll follow up in writing. You were sworn in as Vice Chair for Supervision on July 19th, 2022. Your testimony indicates that due to ongoing review, you'll focus on what you know. So let's start there. The Fed knew of problems at the bank dating back to 2019. Were you personally made aware of major deficiencies at Silicon Valley Bank prior to the collapse? And if so, which ones and when were you notified?
Thank you, Senator. The staff made a presentation to the Board of Governors in the middle of February of this year that was focused on interest rate risk broadly in the banking system and how banks and managers and supervisors were addressing those risks. And as part of that presentation, the staff highlighted the interest rate risk that was present at Silicon Valley Bank and indicated that they were in the middle of a further review and expected to be basically coming back to the bank shortly with further information about their status. I believe that is the first time that I was told about interest rate risk at Silicon Valley Bank.
So you were first notified shortly after folks on your staff learned about these deficiencies.
Senator, the supervisors began highlighting these deficiencies at the firm in interest rate risk management and liquidity risk management in a serious way in November of 2021, as far as I know, so about a little bit more than a year prior to that. They intensified that supervisory review as part of its full scope exam in the summer of 2022, when the firm was downgraded for deficiencies in its risk management practices. And they brought those issues again, according to the record, to the CFO of the firm in October and issued additional findings in November of 2022. So that, as far as we know from the current supervisory record, is the picture.
And that's when you were first notified in October and November of 2022?
No, Senator. To the best of my knowledge, I first learned about the issues at Silicon Valley Bank with respect to interest rate risk in mid-February of 2023. So several weeks before the bank failed, staff made a presentation to the board about interest rate risk broadly and with a particular a highlight, if you will, on Silicon Valley Bank and indicated that they were following up with the bank with further measures.
So your testimony says that asset size is not necessarily an indicator of complexity, and I agree, which is why Section 401 of S 2155 gives the Fed explicit authority to impose the regulations and enhance supervision normally reserved for the largest institutions. And you can do that on any bank between 100 and 250 billion in assets, like SVB. The Fed is given this authority to prevent or mitigate risks to the financial stability of the U.S. We both agree that this is existing authority that the Fed has had since the enactment of S 2155 in 2018, correct?
Yes, the Fed has broad authority to change the rules it uses for different approaches to supervision of firms. Under the rules that were put in place in 2019, the firm was bucketed by a set of categories. I think that it is important to revisit those, as I have been doing since arriving at the Federal Reserve in July.
So given the documented issues that...
You're over time. We'll wrap up if you can. One more
This will be my last question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So given the documented issues that your supervisors found with SVB that we just kind of went over, did the Fed ever consider using its existing Section 401 authority before the failure to more aggressively regulate the bank?
Based on the current supervisory record, it looked like the escalations that had occurred were in the format of MRAs and matters requiring attention and matters requiring immediate attention. And the supervisors also put in place what's called a 4M agreement, which is a limitation on the firm's ability to engage in merger transactions with financial companies.
Thank you, Senator Sinema.
Thank you.
Senator Tessler.